All right.
What?
Hey, hello, everybody, and welcome to Fridays at 5. I'm Karen Taylor of the Color Vowel Chart. Let's have a nice visual applause for everyone being here in the room. Woohoo! We've been enjoying for a couple of minutes pre-recording our new Color Vowel Redbubble shop, a place where you can buy Color Vowel merch and learning products. So you can come here to Color Vowel. Whenever you see that link, here's the homepage. You can search by the type of product. And the things I love the most are the stickers, which yes, now is in the room, and she fashioned some of the earliest magnets and stickers. So we've got magnet stickers, we've got some posters. If you're interested in the Commonwealth chart, we now have that available as an art product and so forth. So take a look, enjoy our shop. You'll find it on our website. If you just go straight to our home page right there, hold on one second. There we go. You'll see our Redbubble gallery. Okay.
I have a question for anybody who has bought the small posters. Do you know if they come on like a board and then you could hold it up and point to them like this? That's kind of what I'm interested in. The small ones.
You'll definitely want to get Jennifer, if you're faster at explaining this, but if you go here, I always say that to Jennifer, like, hey, if you can do this better than me. But if you come down here,
you can buy posters or the what do they call the art something?
Yeah, that one. That's what I was wondering about.
One of them comes on a board. The poster is just a poster, a floppy poster. And then there's an art print or something that comes on harder.
Exactly. So this is where the Redbubble site isn't always the easiest. There's a place where you can view all design options for this thing. That'll take you to the overall page. You have to hunt around, but it's there. This is a poster, it's floppy, but there's another thing that's rigid, and it's called something like an art print or a something or other.
So finish and see if it says something different. Finish.
No, these are just semi-gloss. It's a specific thing that's not the poster.
And there's one that's sort of in between, which you could use in place and buy the smaller size in place of the binder inserts that we used to sell.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So there's one that's like a 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11 or something.
Artboard, that's what it is, right?
It's something like that. I'm going to stop surfing because I'm doing a poor job of it.
That's the one thing to be careful of when you're on Redbubble is it's very easy to fall out into the general Redbubble thing. So if you're looking at posters, all of a sudden you're looking at posters by other artists.
Liz has a point to make. Liz?
I have a question about what you mean by the Commonwealth. What is that?
Thank you. So we have a second version or an additional version of the chart that's the Commonwealth Color Vowel chart that we highlight and discuss in our latest iteration of Basics, by the way. But we need to find a way to highlight that for those of you who have already gone through Basics. It's essentially, it has that extra vowel or the original vowel that North Americans have merged into Auburn and Olive, which it's kind of, I won't go into all of that right now, but it represents all of the vowels of Commonwealth Englishes. That's the UK. That refers to the United Kingdom and all of the areas that are influenced by British Englishes. Yeah.
It refers to the British Commonwealth. Yeah. So it's British, British dialects, Australian, New Zealand.
Can we get one signed by the Queen?
All of the vowels. I like that, Sarah.
All of the vowels. Essentially,
tomato cart.
Tomato cart.
Yeah.
Olive bottle.
Not.
Auburn.
Yeah. So anyway, if for those who come from Commonwealth British Englishes, and you can see why it's awkward to say British when you're Australian or something like that. So this provides this space for tomato cart so that olive bottle can be what it is, and then Auburn fawn is the one that we don't have. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one we don't have.
Yeah. I just refer to it as Queen's English.
I wonder if it would work for Nigeria and Ghana and some of the former British colonies as well.
Maybe,
interesting
except
to
I think
find
they
out.
have merging in the front, low front vowels. So the ah and the ah tend to fall together in those dialects.
Sarah Lawrence, I did not get the joke till I saw it in the chat. All of the vowels. That's very good.
What was that?
All of the vowels.
He kept saying it had all of the vowels. It has all of the vowels, he kept saying. So I
Olive,
heard-
olive.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody, we love coming together Fridays at 5, but every fourth Friday is a special Ask the Linguist episode featuring Dr. Barr right here in the room. If you came with your own questions today, put them in the chat. We would like to, see what we have coming our way. We also have a theme for the day, which is.
I have a special thing to do today. I may not get to your questions.
So Robin, I'm going to hand it over to you, and folks can put it in the chat. Jennifer and I will take turns, seeing what's in the chat and bringing it up to the top of the bubble sheet for Robin. Okay.
Okay. Well,
welcome.
last week we all listened to a podcast, One Head, Two Brains by Shankar Vedantam, and he was talking to Ian McGilchrist, who wrote a book called The Master and His Emissary about the difference between the two sides of the brain, and the left brain and the right brain. And I thought it was really interesting, but flawed. Okay. How many of you have seen that podcast of the two brains? And I know, Karen, you put the
I'm putting it in now.
You put the link in to the reminders, but yeah, put it in now. So it was a very interesting podcast, and what it attempted to do was give a holistic explanation of what the right hemisphere of the brain is responsible for versus what the left hemisphere of the brain is responsible for. How many of you listen to the podcast? Just raise your hands or something. Okay, so a lot of you did. Anybody want to try to sum up in one sentence what they thought the upshot was? Because I mean, lots of people might have different interpretations of it, but just for the people who didn't listen to the podcast, who wants to volunteer to explain it? Don't all jump at once.
Well, I'm not volunteering to explain the whole thing, but the thing that stood out for me is that my old understanding is that one part was handling some functions and the other part was handling other functions, and they were like really discrete functions, like the language center or the music center and stuff. And I think he took it to another level. I don't think he said that was not true. He did say that is true, but that there's another piece to it, and that is the thing about sort of global and local. So it's not just the local functions, but it's also the global construct of, like, are you just staying with the sensory kinds of functions, or is there something that is an overarching theme? And so he was saying that the overarching theme that sort of perspective is right brain, and the details are left brain.
I think that's a really good summary, actually, Anna.
It's more than one sentence.
Well, yeah, but I think it needed more than one sentence. So that's very much what I got from it. So he comes from what he's trying to do is take all the localization or multiple intelligences understanding of the brain, where, as you said, different faculties are located in different places in the brain. So the Broca's area has the language faculty, and Wernicke's area deals with the lexicon, and the music area is over here, and facial recognition's over here, and shape recognition's, all the different things that the different parts of the brain do. And what he's trying to do is figure out what the things on the left side of the brain have in common versus what functions are on the left side of the brain, what they have in common, versus the functions that are on the right side of the brain, what they have in common. And what he's come up with is that the functions on the right side of the brain see the whole picture, as you said, Gestalt. So they do everything, and the things on the left side of the brain are very specific and very local. I don't know if sensory is the word, but it very piecemeal. It only sees bits. It's analytic, and it doesn't see the whole thing. So I think that's a very very interesting and useful way of putting it. I don't think that's quite right, and I especially disagreed with his notion that the right side of the brain sees reality and the left side of the brain ignores, well, actually, the left side of the brain doesn't have the context to put that information into. And I want to, there's a certain attitude he had about the left brain versus the right brain. Did anybody pick up on it? Which side of the brain did he like better?
Oh,
Well, I would say,
yeah, there's a little bit of a prejudice towards the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too. I want to tell a little story. It used to be thought that the left side of the brain was called the dominant hemisphere. So the best hemisphere, the one that does everything, because especially if you're right-handed, then the right hand is controlled by the left hemisphere, and that's also where speech is, and that's the one that can talk, and that's the one that can do math, and that's the one that can do the SATs, right? So intelligence is in the left hemisphere, at least as measured by intelligence tests like the SAT, right? This was pretty much the case up until the mid 70s, and concurrently with that, it was it was considered that men were left-brained and women had bilateral representation of intelligence, or women tend to be fuzzier and right-brained. Okay, so about the mid 70s, it was discovered that in fact women tended to be more left brain dominant, and the left side of the brain developed earlier in females than in males, and that males tended to be dominant, tended to have more facility with right-brained activities like spatial representation and manipulation of objects and mechanical ability and things like that. And suddenly, I don't know if you remember this, those of you who were alive at that time, suddenly the right brain got to be cool as soon as it was discovered that it was men who had who were more likely to have right brain abilities than women, and the left brain started to get less popular. Lori, do you remember that?
Yes, they we're talking about the right brain being very creative, and ad agencies were talking about how right brain oriented they were, and they would even try to develop advertising for the right brain. Sure.
Right. So this is my older sister Lori. I don't know if you anybody recognizes the facial resemblance here, but she got her degrees in psychology and worked for an ad agency, and she lived through this period where moving from the left brain to the right brain got to be cool. So I've always been really suspicious of people who said, "Oh, the right brain is cooler than the left brain," because I was around when it switched, when the psychology research suddenly thought that left brain was no longer interesting and the right brain was the place to be. So that's my own history, but that's why I was a little bit dubious of Ian McGilchrist, simply because he so obnoxiously prioritized the right brain over the left brain. Okay. Now I think Howard Gardner does a better job of de-emphasizing the left brain. Howard Gardner of Multiple Intelligences. I hope most of you are familiar with his work. But his work came from the Boston VA around the same period. So he has a wonderful book called The Shattered Mind that I think I posted last week in the chat, but it came out around 1975. It was, oh, thank you. It was based on his aphasia research at the Boston VA hospital. He discovered that people with head injuries, which is what you get at the VA hospital, he discovered people with head injuries in different places in the brain had different deficits, for example. So he could pinpoint somebody who couldn't recognize faces, somebody who couldn't recognize, who couldn't do music anymore, somebody who had personality changes of emotion, somebody who had different kinds of aphasia from left brain difficulties, some people with agraphia or alexia. So all the different kinds of things that can happen to your brain can reveal what different faculties are in the brain and are specialized for different behaviors and different functions. And that's where we get the left brain, right brain discussion. The reason it's important for language is that a lot of what we work on with especially second language acquisition and learning and teaching is, since Broca's area in the left side of the brain is specialized for your native language, what we're trying to do in teaching a new language is to bypass Broca's area and use other parts of the brain to allow people to produce sounds or understand sounds that are not in their native languages. Is that clear, Karen? You think? I'm seeing a worried look on your face. Is it making sense?
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Okay. Everybody okay with this?
I'm looking at things, so
Okay.
that's why.
3 fingers if you totally get what I'm saying, 2 fingers if you're halfway there, 1 finger if this makes no sense to you at all. Oh, good. I see a lot of 3s and some 2s. Fine. Okay. Now we're going to the fun part of the.
Can I step in?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me step in for just a moment with a couple
Okay,
of
yeah,
comments.
do that.
Paul wrote in an interesting comment. He says, and I just want to see if it aligns with what you're saying as a way to see it. One side of the brain does tasks, the other side manages tasks.
Oh, how interesting. What, Paul, say more about that.
Well, I think it goes back to what the podcast was saying, that one side, for me, it's analogous to target acquisition radar. Some are very precise, you go for it, and others are scanning the whole horizon, looking for threats that are coming into. So.
Okay, so holistic versus specific, right? And
right.
also, what do they call it? The master, what was the name of the book? The Master
and His Emissary.
Emissary.
Yeah.
So the master says, okay, here comes some stuff that we need to analyze. Sends it over, that would be the right brain, and then sends it over to the left brain and says, okay, analyze this.
Yep.
Right.
And or engage or defeat, whatever you want to say.
Right. So here's something that needs specialized attention. I'm I do the big picture, so I'm going to send it over to my specialist left hemisphere to do that part. Okay. Maybe. I think it's more complicated than that, but let's see what you think after I do these experiments with you. Okay. So get out your pen and paper. Everybody set with your drawing implement and paper-like device. Okay, I'm going to give you 15 seconds. And the first thing you're going to do is draw a house. Ready? Go.
Wait, are we supposed to draw a really good house, or are we supposed to draw something that could be recognized as a house?
Whatever you can do in 15 seconds. Okay, time's up.
Okay.
Okay.
We all know that I don't draw.
Julie, that's gorgeous.
Julie's
right.
a great artist. Nice,
Julie is a
Lucy.
quick- Okay, now take a look, everybody.
I put mine out there so that nobody could feel bad.
Okay, look at this.
Move it over,
Now, Lucy-
Robin. We can't see it.
Lucy drew her own house.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now I'm looking at all these houses. You notice something about this?
They all have these ridiculous peaked roofs when I'm from New Mexico and it should have just been like that.
Yeah.
I drew my own house because I know the trick of this question.
Yes. So she's been through this before. She's my daughter, so she's heard this before. Sarah, let's look at your house for a second. Look at the roof on that
Dr.
house.
Barr, we can't hear you because you're.
Oh, because I've got
mic.
my art in front of my mouth. Okay, Sarah, we're looking at your beautiful picture there. You have lots of detail in there. Is this a picture of your own house?
No.
Okay. Julie, is that a picture of your own house? Uh-huh. Karen, is that a picture of well, the one you had before? Was that a picture of your own house, the one with the peaked roof? Liz, is that a picture of your house? How many people actually drew their own house?
It wasn't my idea, but it happens to match.
Okay. Yeah, so it wasn't, I wasn't thinking I was drawing my house, but it does happen to match. Okay. So whose house did you draw? Oh, Shirley. Shirley, explain what you just drew. Shirley, show us your picture again. Oh, that's the one you drew first. Uh-huh.
You gotta unmute.
And that's the one she drew after talking about it. Yeah, that's exactly, in fact, you've just duplicated my PowerPoint. And I don't think you've seen this presentation, but that's exactly my point. So why did we all draw the house with the peaked roof and the little windows like Julie has there?
It's a representation of a house. It's what we think of.
It's I'll be quiet.
Oh, no, Karen knows.
Sorry,
Karen,
our shared schema that reveals our cultural commonality, I think.
Yeah,
yes,
like
got it, Jess. Bingo. It's a house symbol. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is
Okay,
nice.
so it's our symbol for a house. So let me just share
I'm
with
listening
you.
to a podcast.
Are you listening to a podcast? What?
It's okay, move on.
Okay. All right, so let me share this with you. So this is what I show to my class. I have them draw a house. I give them 15 seconds. And the next thing was I asked, did your house look like this? Raise your hand if your house looked like this. And everybody says, yes, pretty much. Did it look like this? Yes, everybody says so. And maybe maybe you had time to add some details. Did the details look like this? Well, yes. Okay. Did your house look like this? This is what you get if you Google house images. Here's another image of a house. Here's the one from you found in children's books. Okay, this is the house image that we're I guess socialized to recognize as a house in this culture. Okay, in Western culture, more people live in, well, at least this was supposed to be a picture of a student dorm. So I'm doing this in my class. I said, don't most of you live in the dorm? Why didn't you draw this? And nobody ever does.
not a house.
Well, okay. How about this? Are these houses? Why didn't you draw this? Why didn't you draw this? How many of you live in a house like this? Or how about this? Or maybe you live in a yurt. If you grew up in a different culture, would your house look different? Right? And here's Shirley, you were reading my mind. This is the, different cultures will have different symbols for houses, right? Okay. Now, I'm going to unshare and get out your pen and paper again. So the next thing I want you to do, and you have 15 minutes to do it in.
15 minutes or
Sorry, 15 seconds. I'm a little bit
Generous.
generous there. Yeah, 15 minutes would be too good. All right. So you're only going to have 15 seconds. I want you to draw a person. Go. Too quick, Karen. Keep going. You have to take the full 15 seconds.
All right.
Okay, time's up.
Oh, I like now is happy running person.
Okay, Karen's and mine look alike because we must have been drawing the same person.
We can't hear you.
Oh, right, because I got this thing. So Karen's and mine look alike. Julie's is very three-dimensional, which I'm impressed with. Now that's an interesting face. Okay.
I like Sarah. I like Sarah's invisible clothes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes.
I had time at the end. I had an extra 3 seconds, so I gave him some clothes.
That's awesome. Okay. Okay. So what do you notice? Some people drew just the face. Some people drew the whole body.
I think it's rigged because only Lucy drew a face. Everybody else drew a body. I think she knows something that we don't.
I just didn't have time.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it didn't have time. So you drew so why did you pick the face and not the hand?
Because the face is the thing that matters the most.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. So looking at your person, what are the things that matter the most about your person? What did you do first with your person?
I did the hair.
You did the hair first?
I did the face last. I realized, oh, I don't have a face. I kind of started the hair work down and then went, ah.
So did you draw the head?
I did the hair and then the chin and then the shirt.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Shirley, what did you do first?
The eyes.
Uh-huh.
I'm coveting hair.
Paul wishes he drew hair. Okay.
What did Ludmilla do? Can you hold your
yeah. Ludmilla, can we see yours? Wow. Okay.
Oh, there's two views.
Wow. I see clothes. How many drew clothes? How many had hands and feet? How many had hair? How many had eyes, nose, mouth?
I forgot the nose.
Oh, I have no nose.
Who needs a nose?
Who needs noses? They just cause
Glasses.
Oh, glasses. I like that. Okay. So how many had a belly button? No. Okay. I thought maybe if you had invisible clothes, you might have had a belly button. Okay, so this is the next bit from the one I share with my class. So I have them draw a person, and then I ask, okay, so how many of you had a person that looked like this? And everybody has something along those lines, had at least this, all right? Do they have a body? Most people had a body. Do they have invisible or see-through clothes, right? Right?
just like Sarah.
Yeah, exactly. So add hands and feet. So why do they all look like this? Does this look, if you saw somebody look like this walking down the street, would you feel, I think I might be alarmed, you know? It might be peculiar, but why do we draw people that look like that? Well, this is our, everybody say it with me, symbol of a person, right? This is symbols of male and female. Is this a person?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it male or female?
It's a hippie.
Female.
Is it a female?
Either one.
So So is it a man with a beard or a woman with a bob and hair
No
around
neck.
her neck, I guess?
And no neck.
Might be a headscarf.
I see a woman in a hijab.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Except it doesn't usually flip out.
That's true.
Yeah.
None.
But if you're from another culture, your symbol for woman might not look like the one on the right. And yet that is our symbol that you see in restrooms, right? Your picture might have, I don't know, somebody that looks like this, or that, or
Not in 15 seconds.
maybe not. Yeah. Well, maybe Da Vinci could have done it. So here's a person, and you're right, that would take a little longer. Okay. Now, let me stop sharing. Let's get to the next thing you're supposed to draw. Okay. Are you ready?
Dr. Barr,
Yes.
I'm going to just show one thing as people get ready. So we've been printing.
Karen, we can't see you.
Oh, you can't. Okay. We've been printing games and activities for years now, as a lot of you know. And if you all remember, an earlier version of the chart had red dress instead of red pepper.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Explain that about.
And so here is the red dress. Oh my gosh, it's so old that the rubber band has turned hard. But anyway, this is the red dress, if everybody can see the red dress. And for years, we looked hard, and it's not about looking, it's imagining hard. Like, what is the essence of a dress?
Yeah.
Right. And so we thought about, and then what can you find? That was the other question. So we came up with this, which is kind of this 1940s, pencil
Cocktail
skirt
party.
kind of thing.
And it's not on a person, I noticed, which is interesting.
Right. Well, we didn't want, if you put it on a person, then it's a woman,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
a problem. Just
And
like
you don't know how long it is. Yeah.
the problem with hook is that the moment you have a hook by itself and it doesn't look like a hook, and then you put something on it, and now this is a picture of that thing. Right. So that's the problem with the dress too. But my point is, we used to receive not a lot, but enough feedback, about the dress. And then one year at TESOL, some visitors came who were visiting, I think they were there from Saudi Arabia. And they said, "Oh, we love the color vowel chart, and we've made our own red dress." And I don't know if they showed it or told me, but it was a much, you can imagine it was a very different look. And so they said, "It's okay, we just changed it." And I said, "Good for you."
So Karen, when you said you got feedback about it, was the other feedback along those same lines, that it didn't cover enough to be considered a dress from?
Often it was Americans who were cautious in advance. Well, my students aren't going to like that kind of thing. And we got some feedback about the black cat too, but often from Americans concerned about cultural groups they work with. So it was always interesting when we got actual feedback from those groups, and it was quite a bit less, I would say, which, it's good for teachers to be cautious for their students. But I just thought that was really interesting when I think they showed it to us. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so are you ready for the next task?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let me get my timer up.
Oh, and the audience should know, as they get that now it's a pepper, which is, everybody has peppers in their culture, almost, except maybe Norwegians, but most of them.
Okay. All right. Are you ready to draw?
Yeah.
Okay. Next task, draw a horse, 15 seconds.
Oh.
Go.
Oh.
Draw a horse.
This might be my best work of art ever.
Okay, time's up.
Liz, I like your speedy horse. It's moving.
Oh,
No, I love your horse now. That's excellent.
Mine look like a dog.
Oh, I like Dawn's. It's a very happy horse. Let's see. Oh, Sarah, that's awesome.
Lori,
Jennifer,
I like Lori's.
You've got a mane and 4 legs and everything. Wow.
Whose is that? Oh, Dawn.
Jennifer has 4 legs on hers.
With the exception of Jennifer, we're pretty much oriented in the same direction.
Oh yeah. Are all is everybody's horse facing left?
No,
Facing right.
mine's facing the opposite way.
Sorry.
The dog is jealous.
Now
I was gonna
love
say
your horse.
somebody's dog doesn't like all these horses.
Okay,
This is
so
a little creepy. They're all facing the same way almost, except for Paul's.
Mine's not facing that way.
Yeah.
I'm going
oh,
left.
yours looks like it's facing to the left. Maybe you're reversed.
I think it's a camera.
Wow, that's weird. Yeah,
Oh.
because
But Jennifer is not.
facing right and all of
No,
you are
it's
facing
going.
left.
I think mine looks the same direction as everybody else's.
Oh, I think some of us are mirrored because Jennifer, you appear opposite the rest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, really?
So
Oh,
if
okay.
you look at your horse, is its nose on
my
the
horse
left
is
or the
looking
right?
to the right. My horse
Yeah.
is looking
So
to
raise
the
your
right.
hand if your
Oh,
horse
I'll-
is looking left.
My horse is looking left.
All right.
Left.
Raise your hand if your horse is looking right. Interesting. Well, one thing that is fascinating that is completely unrelated as far as I know, but if you are doing hieroglyphics, if you were reading hieroglyphics, it seems to be a universal that if you're to understand whether you're reading from left to, you should read the hieroglyphics from left to right or right to left. You need to read in the direction where you're encountering the people and animals faces. So if you're reading from left to right, then the faces will be facing left. If you're reading from right to left, the animals and people will be facing right. And I noticed that since we're reading from left to right, our animal faces left, which is startling to me. And I didn't expect this, but that's how you know if you're reading Luvian or something that goes boustrophédon like this.
Dr. Barr, are you saying that the animal should be facing the direction in which one moves across?
Exactly,
the text?
exactly. So that you're reading towards the faces, and I think this is totally unrelated to my presentation, but I think that's pretty interesting that it came out that way. So something to mull over, everybody. All right.
So Dr. Barr, there's a good question here about right and left brain questions. Maybe this is exactly your point, but how do we account for the cultural differences in how the brain works? For example, the research which says that people from certain countries are more big picture oriented and others are detail oriented.
That's interesting. What I've heard is that there's some not very reliable research about that from some places, from some universities in Japan. But I don't want to get into it too much, but the claims of some of these Japanese researchers who are not linguists say that the Japanese have a better right brain attention to the sounds of nature, and that the Japanese language is represented differently from other languages around the world. And don't believe that, but if you want to, if that's not the research you're talking about, if you want to mention other kinds of research, there's a way to explain the cultural differences in what cultures pay attention to. I'm not sure I would talk about detail-oriented versus holistic-oriented. I think it may have more to do with the kind of things that are important in that culture and which details are important in that culture. So I'm going to belay that for a little bit and get back to the mainstream, but I would be really interested in talking about that further when I get to the end of this presentation.
Great.
If that's okay.
And we'll have a second. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, that was me. there's a follow-up question that touches on autism that I think will also be a.
Oh, yes, I'm going to
So-
be getting to autism in a minute.
Great,
Okay, so
thank you.
this is the draw a horse question. And so this is what I came up with, just trying to do it with my touchpad. And my question to you is, how many legs does a horse have? And how do you know? You may think this is a stupid question, but in fact, my husband is somebody who does not have the natural intelligence to tell you how many legs an animal has. Right, so there are different kinds of intelligence that Howard Gardner talks about. And one of them is natural intelligence. And that's what tells you what category things belong in. And he knows by now what the answer is, but for years, he would have trouble if he was, my husband, if he were asked how many legs does a duck have, he would say 4. And I said, well, no. They
I
only
like
have
that
2.
answer.
He said, well, how am I supposed to know that? And the answer comes back, well, I don't know how you're supposed to know that. So when I ask you, how many legs does a horse have? Or how many legs does a duck have? And you say 2, of course, or 4, of course. My question to you is, how do you know? What my husband wound up doing is saying, well, a duck is a bird. Birds have 2 legs. Therefore, a duck has 2 legs. So he went to the analytic logic part of his brain to compensate for not having the immediate knowledge that a duck has 2 legs. But how do you know that a duck has 2 legs? Have you ever seen a duck live? Maybe not. Maybe. Did you get it from the books you read? How do you know a horse has 4 legs? Have you seen horses? Have you met horses? Maybe not. But how do you get that knowledge? Where does that come from? How do you know what's made out of plastic and what's made out of paper when you're doing the recycling? My husband can't do that either. All right. You think, what's wrong with this man? But in fact, he's very intelligent in many other respects. It's just that he is very low in naturalistic intelligence, which is one of the Gardner intelligences. So
Robin, I'm going to throw this in just because it's a really interesting comment.
Yeah.
Again, from an autism perspective, if you know Temple Grandin's work,
Yes.
Rose here has written that it sounds like the husband is a word thinker versus a picture thinker.
Oh, yeah.
So Grandin will recall all of the images of horses to answer the question.
Right. Yes. So all our images of horses have 4 legs. Our symbolic horse has 4 legs. It might be 3-dimensional. It might have various details, like does your horse have eyes and a nose and a mane and a tail? Most of your horses had tails, I think, because that's particularly salient. Here's an interesting horse.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you think of this horse. It doesn't have all the details. Is this representational? It's got.
You know what? It reminds me of the cave drawings, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's very flowing.
Yes.
And movement, lots of movement.
It looks like a horse. It looks a lot more like a horse than my drawing did, even though my drawing had more details on it that were that are features that go with horses. So there's something about this drawing that is more representational, that is more like a horse than the one with all the details. Okay. So I'm about to switch to the development of art in children, or acquisition of art in children. And just bear with me for a little bit. I got this from a very good book, Betty Edwards, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, and also kids drawing development. I have the website there in the PowerPoint. But so, okay, so from 1 to 2 years, they don't have enough fine motor ability to do much but scribble on the paper. Okay, once they get more control, they start to do circles around the ages of 3, and the first thing they do is I guess the pre-schematic stage. They start with round things because that's an easy movement to do. The first thing you get is a head, and then maybe between 3 and 4 years, you get tadpole people and lollipop trees. So notice this is what children are doing in order to represent people. So when they draw a picture, you get a face, no body, the legs come right out of the head, right? Maybe there's hair, there's probably eyes, nose, and mouth. Okay, so this is the discovery of symbols as early as age 3. So the circular form is a universal symbol for almost anything. And the child is turning the observations of the world around them into symbols, into shapes, squares, triangles, circles. So on the left, you see the earlier stage, basically a head. I don't know if those things are ears or arms and 2 legs. Then you start adding hands with fingers, many fingers, and feet have toes on them, many toes, and then only at the end do you get an actual body, and notice a change in proportion as well. So instead of the head being the biggest thing, the head is more the size that it actually is in the body, and maybe there's clothing as well. All right, so there's still some pieces missing, like arms. Why do you suppose? I mean, why is the head the first thing, and the eyes are at the top of the head, and the hands don't have arms, but they have lots of fingers? So why is that?
Well, before we answer, I have a question. Were these drawings, you said something about circles being the universal symbol, blah, blah, blah. And are these, do you know if these drawings were taken from across different cultures?
That I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
The investigator that did the stages of children's art. It may just be Western. I don't know. But
Okay.
it has,
Dr. Barr, you've only got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, well, let me keep going then. All right, so tadpole people and lollipop trees. You can see the trees on the top. So you have a trunk and you've got foliage, and that's it. That's your symbol for a tree, right? Here we get the what we know is behind the clothing. Okay, so this is a person, and the child has drawn what she knows is there. So notice the belly button. The belly button is very important, and kneecaps. There are kneecaps underneath the pants. And I don't know if that's hair on your feet or what, but there are toes inside those shoes, and so forth. So people are the kids are drawing what they know is there, not what they see. And 6 to 7 years, you get a schematic for drawing things. So notice you've got a dragon, but it looks the same as the person. It's just bigger, right? And you draw everybody the same way. So now we have spatial relationships, and even a baseline that people are standing on. Between 8 and 10 years, kids tend to get favorite things that they draw, and they get to be better at drawing them. I used to draw horses and horses and horses all the time. My big sister, Lori, who's actually here, I think, used to draw people in profile with lips facing left. Some people just draw lots of very good trucks, right? Then 12 to 16 years is when people usually get told by their art teacher that they should not do art. Okay, so they're trying to learn how to draw, but it doesn't look right. I mean, they've got perspective, they've got shading. What's wrong with the face on the right?
It's flat.
Something just eerie about it, something peculiar about it. Okay. So let's come back to that. I want you to identify the stage that the next pictures are from. Okay, so how old do you think this one is?
4.
Maybe 4. And what's a picture of?
Horse.
Dog.
A horse or a dog, probably. Yeah. Okay. How old is this one?
Maybe 6.
Yeah, but between 4 and 6.
Giraffe.
How about this one?
Hieroglyphic.
Antelope.
This is actually Picasso.
Yeah.
So
Adult.
I don't know how old he was when he did this, age 54. So this was the end result of his simplifying his pictures of a bull until he, so the last one was this very basic one, but he started with the one on the upper left and he just took out all the extraneous things. This is Van Gogh, a very early painting, age 32. Look at the faces. Really bad. This is Van Gogh doing really bad art. Okay. What's wrong with the faces?
Proportions are wrong.
The proportions are all wrong. So there's something weird about the right brain going on here. I'm going to skip over a lot of these. This is early Toulouse-Lautrec, age 6. Paul Klee, age 4. These are all, this is Picasso, age 9. So these are not, these are people who went through the same stages as everybody would, except faster and better. Okay, so this is Picasso, age 9. Notice the horse is the best part of the drawing, because he was in that schematic stage when he liked to draw horses and bulls. Right? This is Picasso, age 14. Look at how representational this is. All right. Picasso, quote from Picasso: "I never drew like a child. When I was 12, I drew like Raphael."
Mm.
Right? So when you see Picasso's Cubist stuff, it wasn't because he couldn't do representational art. He'd already passed that part. Right. How about this one?
Better than I can draw.
Yeah. So how old do you suppose this person was when they drew this?
8 to 10.
8 to 10, yeah.
I can see it at the bottom of the page, Robin.
Yeah.
Oh, don't look. I should cover that up.
Oh,
All right.
interesting.
I'll
So
pretend
this
like I
is-
didn't see it.
This is a neuroatypical child. This was drawn when she was 3.5. As soon as she had the
Wow.
ability to had the fine motor control to draw what she intended to do, this is not accelerated cognitive development at all. Not like we saw in the other the prodigies. This is her first stage. This is the first thing she drew.
Wow.
So she didn't go through the same stages as everybody else. She was an autistic savant, or if you're English, savant or savant, but in the US it's called savant. She was nonverbal, right? Here's some.
Yeah,
here's
she
more.
did this before she could read, and that's why it's facing right.
Maybe. Actually, these are copies of a picture book, and she's not copying it. She's remembering what it looked like and drawing what she remembered. Right. So, more age 3.5. What is bizarre is that she drew many amazing things, and people say, "Oh, that's how she communicated," until she started to acquire language around the age of 12. And at that point, her representational art ability declined, they say. It became more symbolic, which I think is very important when we're looking at left brain and right brain functions. This is by Stephen Wiltshire, aged 4 or 5. He's another. This is the London skyline from memory.
Wow.
And again, nonverbal and not using the left side of the brain. So these people are drawing with the right side of the brain. They are not using the left hemisphere. What's going on here is that they are not suppressing the details. Remember, I was talking about the right side of the brain is able to perceive things that the verbal things that the left hemisphere cannot. So the right side of the brain, when listening to a foreign language, will be able to perceive it in the right hemisphere up until the point that it recognizes it as language, at which point it sends the information over to Broca's area, which suppresses the information. So what's going on with the neurotypical development of symbolic art is the same thing that is going on in the neurotypical development of language. The left side of the brain is suppressing any information that is not salient or not culturally important. What is happening with the in autism is that the left brain is not operating at its in what it's designed to do, at least in these areas. So the left brain is not erasing the information that the right brain is observing. So the reason that it's difficult for a non-artist to draw something that's representational is that our left brain is insisting on turning what we see into symbols. So what we turning what we see into what we know. And that's the same reason that it's difficult for us to learn the pronunciation in a second language, because our left brain is insisting on not paying attention to those parts of the auditory signal that are not relevant to our culture. Right? So this may get a little bit at the cultural issue that we were talking about before, but it also shows that the people who are slower to develop the left side of the brain in this suppressive mode, they exhibit behaviors characteristic of autism. And it also appears that when the brain is too full or overstimulated, or it does not have access to something that can dampen the unimportant or not immediately culturally useful information, there tends to be an overload. The brain gets overloaded, and you have to break up the input by stimming, by
Stopping or
doing different kinds of breaking up the signal, for example. And that's one of the reasons that this kind of flapping activity is also very characteristic of vision. What's interesting about the savants who were able to remember the scene exactly, they were not able to point out the salient bits. So they were not able to say, okay, that's Trafalgar Square, and over here is the dome of whatever it is, and that's the here's the train station. They would just be drawing what they remembered as being on the retina, rather than what they knew was on the page. Okay. I'm going to leave you with an interesting visual. Okay, you may have seen pictures of the Thatcher effect. So do you recognize this as Margaret Thatcher? Okay. Do you see anything weird about the picture on the right?
Yeah.
Okay. When I turn it right side up.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So notice the Thatcher effect is that the weirdness of the picture on the right is not apparent until you're looking at the faces upside down. I mean, right side up. When you're looking at the faces upside down, the part of your brain, which is on the right side of the brain, that is specific for recognizing faces and understanding expressions, isn't activated, because you're looking at you're not looking at a face. So you're observing, and you say, okay, this looks normal. I'm looking at the different pieces, and the mouth looks okay, and the eyes look okay. When you see it in context, using using the part of the brain that recognizes faces, it's really creepy, right? So that's something also that's involved with left brain and right brain, and there's a whole lot more to say, but what I guess my conclusion is that what's going on with the left brain in terms of suppressing those things that are not important for the culture, or not important for the language, or not important symbolically, is going on not just in language, but also in art. And we noticed that children with autism, for example, why is it that when people draw faces who are untutored artists, they always have the eyes up here in the forehead, right? What's going on with that is because there's nothing happening in this whole area, right? This part does not contain any information, at least for a neurotypical child. So if you're drawing a face, put the eyes here, because there's nothing to look at in the forehead. But one of the characteristic gazes of autistic children is not meeting the eye. So they're looking at all different parts of the face, and they're not understanding which parts are socially salient, which parts are important. And they're the ones who are able to draw a face in proportion. They're able to draw what they see and not what they know. So I don't know exactly how this connects up with the podcast, but the reason
Well, you seem to be saying that each of the specific parts of the brain do the details and the context. Like you're talking about the part of the brain that recognizes faces, and you're saying that part does two things. It recognizes the parts of the face, but then you also have to have the context. So you're not dividing it up the way he did, that it's right side and left side. You're saying every single part of the brain that has that function does both of those things.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
I am kind of saying that. I also do want to say, though, that the right side of the brain is able to recognize language and recognize when things are grammatical and not grammatical. It just doesn't want to say so. All right. There's a whole lot of really interesting split brain work about what does the right brain know, and it knows a lot more than you give it credit for. But the question is what these different modules, I think, are for honing the specific knowledge. So the face is important to people, and therefore we want to not pay attention to what's up here on the forehead or the cheeks. We don't care about the body except for the belly button. That's important to kids. the arms are less important than the hand, so we don't draw the arms. So it going from the actual sensory input to the symbolic part, which is what we were talking about with when we were drawing the pictures. That is based on what our culture tells us is important. So if we were, I don't know, growing up on the moon or something, maybe we would draw everybody with a astronaut's helmet or I don't know, something, but it would make a difference where you were growing up. And I think that's why the left brain or the different parts that erase the information are so important, because if you didn't have those parts, you would not be able to function. You would have too many things to keep track of at the same time. So if you had to be hearing every single sound in a different way, you would not be able to identify the important phonemes of the language you're learning. If all you saw was exactly what was hitting your retina, you might not pay attention to the eyes. You might pay too much attention to the forehead. You might not be able to identify Trafalgar Square because you were too obsessed with the shadow underneath the gutter on the right side. Yeah, something like that. So there's an important function to the part of your brain that is pruning the unnecessary information.
Dr. Barr,
yeah,
we're coming to a close. This is really fascinating, and
it's awesome, isn't it?
There's a great deal of and I think we have another session coming up fourth Friday. Why don't we say in advance that I think we spent last Friday looking at something quite far from language teaching per se. Today we've moved into the brain in more detail, and thank you for more clarification and accuracy. And then I think the coming Friday, that's Ask the Linguist, which will be the fourth Friday in June, we could dedicate that to brain-based language learning and teaching.
Yeah.
Because there's some really great questions.
Now that you know this, what do you do with it?
Yeah,
right?
What can we do?
Yeah.
And I'll be really interested in that because I myself have been, fascinated by that throughout the Color Vowel Charts journey and still. So I want to thank
this stuff wild.
This is
just and I have a whole lot more weird things to show you.
And I have questions about cartoons. I keep wondering, what is cartooning? And
a lot of my foreign students don't recognize cartoons. So if they're looking at the Bob books or some kids books with cartoons in them, they don't. I remember I asked my student from Sudan. I said, go up and draw a face on the board, and she did not draw. The nose was up at the top of the head, and the eyes were over here, and she did not have a schematic for a face. And I realized, oh my gosh, she does not have,
the same
symbol for a face, or she does not draw a face the way we are taught to draw a face,
Right. So we have more to pick up on. Folks, I want to thank you. You have so many great comments here in the chat.
I'm going to have to look at all the comments because I missed all the chat.
I'm going to save it so that we can look at that. And we'll be posting this on Fridays at 5 a YouTube page, but without the comments, of course. So we will put the links over there, though. Again, thank you, Dr. Barr. Thank you. Can we all give Dr. Barr the love? Yeah. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe.
Showing us your amateur drawings. Sorry,
Exactly.
your symbolic drawings.
Symbolic
right, brain drawings.
Show me how to draw a horse.
All right, everybody, have a safe weekend. Have a great Memorial Day if you're here in the States, and be well. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Let me look at all.
Thanks, Dr. Barr.
I'm going to look at all the chat stuff. Wow, there's a whole lot of the chat.